Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Conversations Unplugged. I'm in conversation with Daisy Varun, and we've been exploring some fantastic topics over the last few weeks. If you have not looked at the previous episodes, please go back and listen because you'll be amazed at the kind of conversations that have emerged and the topics that we have covered, and just a very different thought process to some of the most common topics that we are all hearing, but we don't have clarity around. So today, I thought we'll do something different. We've all heard from Daisy when she introduced herself in the first episode that, and we all know that she reads a lot, and that's from where a lot of her wisdom emerges. And she writes as well. So we thought, okay, let's explore that part of Daisy today and see what and talk about some of her favorite books, some of her favorite authors probably, and then also have her read a few poems that she has written for us. So we're going to do that today. No deep topics, nothing. If it emerges, it'll emerge, but right now that's not the plan. And we will start by talking about a book, probably read a few paras from that book, and then go to her poetry. So welcome, Daisy. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. So let's start with a favorite book of yours. Which is a favorite book? Who's the author? Tell us a little bit about that book and then probably read something from that book for all of us.
इसे फेवरेट कहना तो बहुत मुश्किल है because अलग-अलग टाइम पे अलग-अलग किताबें थी, but then one book which came and stayed more as an occult in my life. So one of course is Gita, which I can't stop talking about. The other is one of the Osho's collection of letters, and it's called A Cup of Tea. It was gifted by a good friend of mine. I don't know if you can see the book if I hold it up. Yeah, that's the book.
Yeah, we can see it.
It's by Osho, and it has nothing. If you just open something, it'll have a number to it somewhere, and then some words written on it. So these are responses to people who used to write letters to him. So in those days, there was no quick phone and stuff like that. So people would write letters and their questions, and Osho would answer that. Osho never wrote. Osho only spoke. And it was scribed by his disciples. So whatever letters also he responded to, they were at the end of his sermon every time. He would pick a few letters and respond. And whatever he spoke, then people will transcribe and, send back to whoever wrote that. So I use this book as a होता है ना शलाखा की तरह, मतलब आपके मन में कोई परेशानी है, कोई प्रश्न है, then I will come to this book and then I will just randomly open one page and I will read what's written there, and most of the time it will give me an insight, a perspective, something new to think through and talk about, and that's how. So we can test that. Let's put a question to the book.
Yeah,
you ask a question, I'll open it and read, and let's see what comes out.
Okay, I'm now thinking, what kind of questions can we ask?
I don't know. I come to it for anything and everything, sometimes.
Okay, so let's see. Will Conversations Unplugged, the podcast that we're doing right now, will it last 5 seasons?
Wow, that's quite specific. Huh? I'm not even looking at the book. I'm just randomly. Okay, let's do this. You say stop and I'll stop flipping the page. When you say stop, I'll
stop.
Okay. 215.
Okay.
Wow, I am blown away by the first sentence. Love, always remember.
Yeah.
Love, always remember the golden rule, one step at a time.
Oh,
now you see why I use it as occult. Now I'll read the whole thing. It's a long one. So you asked a question, you better listen to it now.
Yes, please go ahead, all yours.
A good-natured woman was often asked for food by tramps. She finally decided to refuse them. It was becoming too burdensome. But shortly after she made her resolution, one young man stopped and asked her for a little piece of thread. She noticed that his pants were badly ripped, that he had a needle, and she realized he could not get work with his pants in the present condition. So she gave him the thread. The fellow took the thread, went down the road, and sat under a tree, and after a few minutes, then came back to the house. He told the woman he could not repair the pants unless he had a piece of cloth for a patch. She gave him a small piece of material. About an hour later, the young fellow came again to the house and said, Madam, these pants are beyond repair. It would be very good of you if you could give me a pair of your husband's old pants. So she gave him a pair of old pants and smiled at his cleverness. The young man went behind the barn and changed into the pants given to him. Then he returned to the house and told the woman that the pants were sort of big around the waist. But if she could give him some food, he was sure they would fit perfectly. This time the woman burst out laughing and gave him a big dinner, and all because he took one step at a time.
Oh my God.
Now you know why I love the book.
And I was thinking, how is the story taking to the answer? Like, because, and in the end, it all sorted. Wow, this is amazing. Like,
I know you're going to order this book next.
Yeah.
The next thing I know, Deepa has placed an order for a cup of tea.
I know. And I'm going to show the audience my cup of tea next time when we meet. Fantastic. This is amazing. What
That's
an
my love for
experience.
book. It gets, I'm getting goosebumps. It gets strengthened every single time. So it's not just my questions. It can answer anybody's question.
Yeah, that's great. I'm
Yeah,
still
that's interesting.
recovering. I'm still recovering from that first line. Forget the poem. I'm just recovering from that first line. And it was so clear. One step at a time. So let's just do
One
this
step at a
episode
time.
today.
Exactly.
And then
This
we'll
is
see.
interesting.
Then
And
we'll
I can
see.
guarantee that whoever has watched this episode till here is definitely going to order this book.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We should have such books. In fact, it's also said about Gita that if you have a
Yeah,
question and you
yeah,
open
absolutely.
Gita, you'll get the answer, you know. So there are some books
My
like that.
two go-to books, three
Hmm.
actually. One is Gita, and the one is वो बहुत बचपन से है. हमारे घर में we have this Ramcharitmanas. Forever since I
Ah,
opened my eyes, my household always has a Ramcharitmanas. And in Ramcharitmanas, in the beginning, there is something called a Shalakha. So, you just randomly point to a letter, and from there you count every seventh or the ninth, I'm forgetting which one, seventh letter, and you write it down, and it makes a sentence. And that sentence is from a part of one of the verses, Ek chaupai ka hissa hai wo. And that chaupai was supposed to be the answer to your question. So for me, this occult thing was kind of, I was conditioned to believe in the written word at a very young age. So whenever we were like, very, very upset, my mother would say, Acha jao, shalakha kar lo. So, she would distract us. So instead of worrying about something, go ask a question. And Shalaka is like a holy book. So, whatever that Ramcharitmanas gives you, that
hmm.
Shalaka gives you, that's your answer. Now live with it. अच्छा तुम्हें मिला ना जवाब ये बोला है भगवान जी ने so now learn to deal with it तो वो शलाका का जो शौक वहां से आया फिर when I was introduced to Gita I started doing that to Gita and this one interestingly because this is not a start to finish story kind of a thing these are small like this
Yeah,
some questions some answers some little story another thing about Osho is that he's full of stories he'll always whatever answer he has to give he'll give but he'll always have some master story, some Zen story, some story like this one, something. So it makes the learning so much more crystallized in your mind.
absolutely. Stories are beautiful. And every time
Yes.
you hear a story, and they always have a moral at the end of the story. And that's how we also have heard stories like the Panchatantras and the
Yeah.
Birbal stories. They were just so beautiful. I remember reading Champak, Nandan, those kind of books growing up. And every week when they used to come,
Chanda
Chanda
Mama.
Mama, Chanda Mama. And it's so beautiful remembering those books because that was the
Yes.
childhood that we were, brought up in. So excellent. And when you were talking about Shalaka, I remembered we also used to do it. So we used to have Ramcharitmanas and my mom and dad, whenever they had a confusion or we had something which we had to decide and we couldn't reach to a conclusion, we used to sit with that and we used to do that seventh letter, write it down, and then see what emerges. I have done that also. So beautiful. Excellent.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So let's move on to your journey with poetry. And so how did you start writing? You mentioned in the first episode that you started doing that at a very, very young age. And your mom
If
used to
I,
find,
uh,
Your
So
mom
I
used
don't
to
know.
try finding if it was written somewhere, you know, I remember you saying that. So how was your journey with poetry, and do you still write? And read to us a few of your favorite poems from then and now. We'll see the difference.
Sure, sure, sure. So, you won't, I won't have so much from then because something happened, you know. So I used to write about very deep things, and even I don't know. If you ask me how, I have no idea. And that's why I believe in Prarabdha. That's why I believe in Sanchit Karma. That's why I believe in a lot of things that we carry from past life. Because when my mother tells me that I was 3.5, 4 years of age, and I was singing something sitting by the window, it was something like, you know, ये दुनिया एक गुलशन है, इस गुलशन में जो खिल जाए, वो इस दुनिया में मिल जाए. And something, it was like, you know, a big thing. That's when she said कि इतना गुलशन वुलशन जैसा शब्द और इतना बड़ा फिलोसफी है, 3.5 पौने 4 साल की बच्ची गा कैसे रही है. So that's the curiosity that took her to research कि भैया ये कहाँ से पढ़ा इसने, रेडियो पे सुना इसने, किसी जिंगल में तो नहीं बजा ये. वो रेडियो में जिंगल्स होते थे ना, तंदुरुस्ती की रक्षा करता है, लाइफ बॉय टाइप्स. So she thought that maybe कहीं से सुन लिया है और गा रही है. But then all her research led to her understanding that it's not from anywhere else. And then she started noticing कि ये हम अक्सर कुछ गाती है. बहुत लंबा नहीं, 4-5 लाइन भी अगर गाती है तो 4 साल का बच्चा अगर 4-5 लाइन गा रहा है तो बहुत है, you know. So then she started noting it down. But over a period of time, we moved so many cities, so many houses that a lot of those diaries got lost. One that my diary, I remember writing from the age of 7. That's when I had learned writing one complete sentence. You know, छोटा छोटा sentences जो होता है, मात्रा बिना मात्रा वाला and all. तो मेरी कॉपी के पीछे लिखा रहता था. So the first time I wrote something, मेरी कॉपी के पीछे, my teacher scolded me. She said, ये स्कूल का कॉपी ये सब बकवास करने के लिए नहीं है. You are not supposed to write all this here. So then I decided to pick one of the diaries from Mom's Almira and I started writing. That diary stayed with me till I was in 6th standard, which means I was about 11 or 12 years old, 11 years old, maybe 11 plus. So in those 4.5 years, what I had written was lost because once my sister happened to lay her hand on the diary, and उसमें दो कविताएं थी जो जिसमें से एक तो मुझे थोड़ी थोड़ी याद है, जिसमें it was an invitation to death, and it was done very beautifully. If you ask me, for a 7, 8 year, 9-year-old girl writing that, I think I wrote that when I was in 4th standard, so I must have been 8 or 9. मृत्यु तुम आ जाना बादल बन और मेरे जीवन के सूरज को ढक लेना. मृत्यु तुम आ जाना सूरज बन और मेरे जीवन के ओस बिंदु चुन लेना. मृत्यु तुम आ जाना वायु बन और मेरे जीवन का, ऐसे कुछ 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 था, you know. So it was inviting death in every form that I could. मृत्यु
Yeah.
तुम आ जाना तितली बन और मेरे जीवन का पराग चुन लेना. So, you know, I had invited death in almost every little living form that as a child I had observed, and I had observed what does it take. So what does a butterfly take? It takes the nectar from the flower. So मृत्यु तुम आ जाना तितली बन और मेरे जीवन का परागकण चुन लेना. So, you know, I had, and this was, and I'm getting goosebumps again because ये बहुत लंबी कविता थी.
I am also
This
getting
ran
goosebumps.
into,
Yeah.
this ran into 3 pages, but I don't remember it all. So that was this one, and then there was one which was titled Kafan, that I wrote in my 5th or 6th standard, which again was pretty dark, if I can say that. And if you ask me why I wrote like that, I have no clue. Honestly, I have no clue. But somewhere I have such a deep understanding of the reality of life, the truth of pain, the truth of death, that I've never been scared about it, you know. So वो कफन भी मेरी बहन ने ले जाके वो डायरी मेरा मम्मी के सामने तो बताया. मम्मी न्यू आई राइट, यू नो, आई एम श्योर कितना भी मैं छुपा के रखूं, मम्मा मेरा सब पढ़ लेती थी निकाल के. But I think it was my mama was there, and you know, ये ऐसे कैसी कविता लिखती है, what is wrong with her, इसको साइकोलॉजिस्ट को दिखाओ, ये डिप्रेशन में है, and all that jazz happened, you know, what not. मैंने वो पूरा डायरी को आग लगाई. It had 5 years of my work. And as a kid, I was just so upset about it. I don't know. I did not know where to take that anger out. I took it on my diary and I burnt everything. It was beautiful 5 years of work which I burnt.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah.
And till date, there's a part of me that feels sad about it. And there's a part of me that says that maybe it was some previous cycle that got completed. You had to express it and get done with it. But then I lost so many other diaries in transition that, eventually now I don't write as much unless otherwise something really turns out. Okay, I'll read something for you. Will you give me a
Yeah,
minute if I
yeah.
still have the big magic here? Oh, I think my son has taken it to his room. There's a Elizabeth Gilbert's book, The Big Magic.
Hmm.
I think it's on page number 90 or 91. She talks about a woman who writes poetry, and she says that poetry is something that comes to you. Amad hai. It's a divine gift. You can't write poetry because you want to write poetry. तो मेरे ऊपर वो जो कृपा थी ना वो एक certain time तक की थी. अभी बहुत rarely आती है. So in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, she says that sometimes poetry passes by the woman who's explaining it to Elizabeth, and she says sometimes I catch it by the last word, pull it backward, and when I
Wow.
put it down on paper, I realize that it has come down backwards and it still makes sense.
Oh.
It's a beautiful part in that book. If you read that page number 90 or 91 or something like that, you'll get the whole story. So that's what happened with me. I don't know where this came from. I was writing about expressions which were unfathomable for a child. I was writing about old age when I was 10 years of age, 12 years of age, 15 years of age. I was writing about lost love when I had not even experienced love in my this living
Mhm.
form. So I was writing very profound stuff. Uh, one of my friends remembers a poem that I had written in one of the school competitions. प्रेम यदि मौन हो तो प्रगाढ़ होगा, पीड़ा यदि मौन हो तो प्रगाढ़ होगी. प्रेम यदि मौन हो तो गूढ़ होगा, पीड़ा यदि मौन हो तो प्रगाढ़ होगी. The importance of silence, how silence is deeper than voice, is what the essence of the poem was, and she still remembers it. She remembers quite a bit of it, and I don't. But I don't know. At that age, I think that was in seventh or eighth standard that I wrote it, and that's why by the time I came to college, my mother said, "Why don't you publish your stuff?" And we published some,
Okay.
and then I lost some, and then while various transfers, we I lost many of my diaries. I think I had about 4 or 5 diaries full. Now I don't have, only one maybe which is left, but rest I all lost.
I think we
So
also carry from our previous
yes,
janams,
I
right? The
think so.
prodigies who are there, they can like play an instrument when they are 2 or 3. They have
Yes,
never been taught, but yes,
yes,
can still do it. So I think that's something that you carried from your
I
last
think
birth.
so.
Yeah.
I think so. देखो इसमें भी this one also has a lot of work on pida, you know.
Ah,
So pida is
sukha
pain. So
patta. Hmm.
sukha patta. So this also has many which is about pain and comparison. So we talk about comparison. I think this one has one on comparison.
Okay, let's hear that.
Yeah. है और क्षितिज मेरे, and my Hindi is a little difficult. So क्षितिज is horizon, okay? है और क्षितिज मेरे, सीमाएं और तुम्हारी खिंची हुई, मेरी आंखों में खिले स्वप्न, तेरी पलकें हैं मिची हुई, मेरे मन कानन में विचार जंतु करते विचरण. मन कानन, मन का जंगल, विचार जंतु थॉट्स. सो मेरे मन कानन में विचार जंतु करते रहते विचरण, तेरे उर उपवन में तो प्रतिबंधित है अलिका भी गुंजन. I don't know if you are able to make the Hindi. Whenever you feel the Hindi is too difficult, I'll explain, okay? So मेरे मन कानन में विचार जंतु करते रहते विचरण. I live with free thought. तेरे उर उपवन में तो प्रतिबंधित है अली का भी गुंजन. अली कहते हैं छोटी की मात्रा वाला अली. वो बड़ी
Acha.
की मात्रा वाला अली तो अली मौला वाला अली हो जाएगा, बट
हाँ.
छोटी की मात्रा वाला अली भंवरे को कहते हैं. तो तुम्हारे मन में तो भंवरा भी गुनगुन नहीं कर सकता, मेरे मन में तो विचार जंतु बड़े बड़े जानवर घूमते रहते हैं. So
Hmm.
the comparison. है धनक रंग पाखें तेरी, यू आर ब्यूटिफुल लाइक अ रेनबो. है धनक रंग पाखें तेरी, मेरे डैने हैं श्वेत श्याम. तुम्हारे पंख हैं और मेरे डैने हैं. पंख छोटी चिड़िया के होते हैं, डैने बड़े पंछी के होते हैं. सो
Then,
ये
acha, they are
दिस,
also
हाँ,
wings.
विंग्स. तो
Acha.
बाज के जो पंख होंगे या अबाबील के जो पंख होंगे उनको पंख नहीं कहा जाएगा, उनको डैना कहा जाएगा हिंदी में. अगर
Oh.
आप देखोगे, पंख गौरैया के होते हैं, तोते के
Hmm.
होते हैं,
Acha.
बट बड़ी चिड़ियों के डैने होते हैं. तो ये देखो, सेल्फ लव की हम बात कर रहे थे ना, ये पोएम मैंने लिखी होगी आई थिंक इन 6th स्टैंडर्ड. तो मेरा सेल्फ लव वहां से कितना स्ट्रांग है कि मैं कंपैरिजन में नहीं पड़ी कभी भी, और कंपैरिजन में पड़ी भी तो मैंने स्वयं को हमेशा कंपैरिजन में वहां पाया जहां मैं आई वाज बेटर सेटल्ड देन हुएवर यू आर. तुम्हारी तेरी पांखें हैं धनक रंग पांखें तेरी, मेरे डैने हैं श्वेत श्याम. ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट है, चील बाज के उसमें
Hmm.
ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट होते हैं डैने, है ना. क्या जो तुम में सामर्थ्य अधिक करना तो होगा ही विश्राम.
You'll have to rest at some point, right?
So however strong you are, ultimately we all are going to rest in peace.
Yeah.
तुम तरुणी तनया हो कोमल, ढूंढती सदा आंचल छाया, पर मुझको विकृत तरुवर बनकर धूप झेलना ही खाया.
Wow.
हैं कितने उज्जवल अभ्र तुम्हारे, मेघ मेरे कितने श्यामल, क्या अंतर. Your clouds are beautiful, white and fluffy. My clouds are deep and dark and heavy. But क्या अंतर, मुख्य बात यह है किसमें कितना है ज्यादा जल. कितने अवगुण मेरे कर में, कितने गुण आभूषण तेरे, अब इसकी गिनती कौन करे, गुण अवगुण हम में बहु तेरे. हैं सांध्य पुष्प तेरे अपने, मेरे हैं अपने सूर्यमुखी, सबके अपने अपने भूतल, सबके अपने आकाश सखी. Where is the comparison? Everybody is living a different life. सबके अपने अपने भूतल, सबके अपने आकाश सखी. So I have never had any questions, and this was published in 98.
Let me first give a round of applause for such deep thoughts. And we know the Daisy that we are listening to now, how did she actually grow up, and even her childhood, what was she writing about? So beautiful. Yeah.
So Pratham Sanskaran 1998. It's that old when it was published, but it's even more old when it was written. So I have had a very different. I am skewed in my head. कुछ chromosomal लोचा है. That's how I put it. Then these are the most recent ones, Kahi Ankahi, and these are collections of various so many poets, and I happen to be one of them in both.
Okay.
So इसमें एक है जो मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगती है. इसमें से सुनाऊं, इसमें से सुनाऊं, इसमें
दोनों में से एक सुना दो.
ज्यादा नहीं हो जाएगा. अच्छा चलो इसमें से एक सुना दिया. उम्र छोटी सी है, उम्र छोटी सी है, हर रोज गुजर जाती है, छोड़ जाती है जहन में कोई बीता लम्हा, सर्द रातों में उगाहे हुए कुछ ख्वाब भी हैं, और तन्हाई का जलता हुआ एहसास भी है. एक वादा है वफा का जो निभाया न गया, एक वादा है वफा का जो निभाया न गया, थोड़ी बातें हैं मोहब्बत के हसीन लम्हों की, टुकड़ा टुकड़ा हुए कुछ खत हैं, थोड़ी तस्वीरें, और एक स्पर्श है शबनम की तरह जलता हुआ. रात के धुंध में कुछ गूंजती सदाएं हैं, और कुछ सिसकियां हैं सहमी सी. मैं हथेली में समेटे हुए इन यादों को अब भी ठहरी हुई हूँ वक्त के दोराहे पर. जिंदगी आके जहां रोज ठहर जाती है, उम्र छोटी सी है, हर रोज गुजर जाती है.
Lovely. This is beautiful, and it is simpler. Like I could also understand the words, but it is so beautiful. Very nice. But you still touch very deep topics. They are like deep, and they're talking about I don't know. It just touches deep inside, and you can read it a couple of times, and still, I think a different meaning will emerge every time you read it. And
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear one more from the other book that you said.
This one? Okay.
Yeah.
This one is an interesting. I'm going to read an interesting one for you. This has a little background. So one of my mother's colleagues, बहुत बचपन में हमारी मम्मा के सारे जितने भी फ्रेंड्स हैं ना, उनको हम लोग मासी ही कहते हैं. सो सोलंकी मासी हैं, विनोद सोलंकी. शी वाज HOD इंग्लिश डिपार्टमेंट एट गोरखपुर यूनिवर्सिटी. मॉम के साथ उस टाइम पे उनकी कॉलीग हुआ करती थी. And she is a very religious person, So once she had come home and she was telling us a story from Shiv Puran. And Shiv Puran में वो कहानी है कि एक गौरैया है. कहानी आप इसमें सुनना, but इसका रेफरेंस वहां जाता है. So this is something. जैसे जैसे वो कहानी सुना रही थी ना, again, वो आता है and you have to catch it and pull it onto the paper. तो जैसे वो कहानी सुना रही थी, वो मेरे मन में ट्रांसलेट हो रही थी पोएम की भाषा में, as she was telling. And जैसे उन्होंने कहानी खत्म की, वैसे ही मैंने पेन उठाया और उसको पेपर पे लिख दिया, क्योंकि अगर वो उस समय नहीं लिखती मैं, तो वो चला जाता.
Yeah.
So this is one of those poems. Okay. It's titled चकोरी. You know चकोरी ना, चांद चकोरी की प्रेम कहानी, प्रेम जगत में है सबसे पुरानी. So this is about a चकोरी. एक रोज चकोरी नदी किनारे तिनका तिनका चुनती थी, तिनके पर तिनका ठहरा कर मन ही मन कुछ गुनती थी. इतने में एक ऋषि मुनि आए, जप में हरि नाम लिए, देख चकोरी को पूछा, बैठी है यह क्या काम लिए। वह बोली, ऋषिवर गंगा तट पर अपनी चिता सजाती हूँ। वह बोली, ऋषिवर गंगा तट पर अपनी चिता सजाती हूँ, मैं प्रीत पगी बिरहन अपने प्रियतम से मिलने जाती हूँ। मुनि बोले, प्रिय से मिलने के हैं और मार्ग भी है सुमना। मुनि बोले, प्रिय से मिलने के हैं और मार्ग भी है सुमना, फिर ये कैसी नादानी, कैसा मार्ग भला तूने है चुना। वह बोली, मुनिवर घोर भय प्रभु शिव इस तट पर आएंगे। Now here is the beauty of the whole poem, the whole story. वह बोली, मुनिवर घोर भय प्रभु शिव इस तट पर आएंगे और राख हुए मेरे तन की मस्तक पर भस्म लगाएंगे। उस मस्तक पर ही तो मेरे प्रियतम ने धूनी रमाई है। चांद शिव के माथे पे रहता है ना, तो उस मस्तक पर ही तो मेरे प्रियतम ने धूनी रमाई है। हे तात, मेरे प्रियतम के चरणों में ही मेरी भलाई। This line was the most powerful line for me. So she is on शिव के माथे पर है, इसका उसको गर्व नहीं है। वो चांद के चरणों में रहेगी यहाँ पर, उसका उसको गर्व है। So हे तात, मेरे प्रियतम के चरणों में ही मेरी भलाई है। ऋषि बोले, प्रीत की रीत ये क्या जिसमें करना हो मृत्यु वरण। ऋषि बोले, प्रीत की रीत ये क्या जिसमें करना हो मृत्यु वरण। वह बोली, प्रीत की रीत यही, प्रिय को कर दो सब कुछ अर्पण। प्रिय को कर दो सब कुछ अर्पण। So this
Oh,
was one of those poems.
I'm getting goosebumps as you're and those 2-3 lines that you read, it is so beautiful कि वो राग से अपना अपने माथे पे लगाएंगे and then I will be like चांद के उसमें पैरों में. Oh my God, wow, that is and I think your poems also so beautifully defines what love is, right? And again, that's a different topic, we don't want to touch upon it today, but it so beautifully talks about and shares the true love, what we call true love. So my God, Daisy, I'm so glad that we're doing this today and we are hearing some of your amazing. Send me a picture of these poems, I would love to read it again. I think they're beautiful.
Sure. एक और है, सुनाऊं क्या?
हाँ
ज्यादा
please
हो
go
जाएगा?
ahead. नहीं कोई बात नहीं, आज dedicated to your poem, so let's hear it.
So this one is again from childhood. I think this happened when I was in 9th standard और 10th standard, somewhere around that time. उस समय पढ़ाई का बहुत प्रेशर होता था और मुझे ज्यादा लिखने पढ़ने, मतलब कहा जाता था पोएम्स से थोड़ा दिमाग हटा के पढ़ाई में भी लगा लो. So I remember this because it is one of those poems जो मैंने छुप के लिखी थी कि कोई मुझे देख ना ले लिखते हुए, because डांट पड़ेगी. But this was during the rainy season, and there was a beautiful rainbow that I could see from my window, and I couldn't resist writing this because again it was flowing. I couldn't stop it. It was flowing, you know. इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? नभ के माथे पर खींच सुनहरा तिलक सवित जब छुप जाता है. It's usually you'll have rainbows happening either early morning or late night because the sun rays are angular at that time, you know, so it's either in the morning or in the evening. So सूरज छुपने के बाद mostly आपको दिखता है. नभ के माथे पर खींच सुनहरा तिलक सवित जब छुप जाता है, श्यामल घन भी तड़ितधार से जब आमंत्रण लिख जाता है, उस पल में कर किरणों से अभिसार कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, मैंने तुमको पैदल पैदल चलते देखा है. इंद्रधनुष, मैंने तुमको पैदल पैदल चलते देखा है, किंतु तुम्हारे पद चिन्हों की जगह बनी केवल रेखा है. सतरंगी ये अपने पंख पसार कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? तरुफुनगी पर लहरों पर, नदिया के शुभ्र पुलिन पर, नन्हे पुष्पित चेहरों पर, कुछ बूढ़े और मलिन पर चित्र खींच करके बिन चित्राधार कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? पावस की संध्या में ही क्यों तुम नभ पर आते हो? वाई ओनली ड्यूरिंग रेन? पावस की संध्या में ही क्यों तुम नभ पर आते हो? होता वसंत जब भू पर, तब क्यों तुम छुप जाते हो? करती है वसुधा जब 16 श्रृंगार, कहाँ जाते हो? इंद्रधनुष, तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो? तुम कामदेव का धन हो या फिर रति की वेणी? काम और रति आर कपल, राइट? तो कामदेव एंड उनकी पत्नी. तुम कामदेव का धन हो या फिर रति की वेणी हो पुष्प सदृश कोमल तुम, या धार कोई पैनी हो, तय करके पथ सुनील का विस्तार कहाँ जाते हो, इंद्रधनुष तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो, कोने को छूकर तेरे जब स्वाति बूंद चलती है। यहाँ फिर आपको पेन मिलेगा। हाँ, सो आई थिंक दैट्स माय मूल भाव, माय डीप, I recognize that melancholy. My मूल भाव is melancholy. कोने को छूकर तेरे जब स्वाति बूंद चलती है, पलकों पर बिखरी पीड़ा पर अश्रु बूंद ढलती है, लेकर इन सजल कणों के उपहार कहाँ जाते हो, इंद्रधनुष तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो, करती उस पार प्रतीक्षा क्या प्रेयसी कोई तुम्हारी, a beloved waiting at the other end, करती उस पार प्रतीक्षा क्या प्रेयसी कोई तुम्हारी, या तुमने वहां छुपाकर रखी है संपत्ति सारी, गोल्ड pot at the end of the rainbow they say there's a golden pot, right? So करती उस पार प्रतीक्षा क्या प्रेयसी कोई तुम्हारी, या तुमने वहां छुपाकर रखी है संपत्ति सारी, किसके हित यूं छिप छिप कर हर बार वहां जाते हो. It never, you will hardly ever see a full rainbow, na? It will come and then it will hide behind the clouds, and then you will see a little, and then it will hide. So that's what I've observed about it, and that's what I've questioned here. कि किसके हित यूं छिप छिप कर हर बार वहां जाते हो, इंद्रधनुष तुम इस जग के उस पार कहाँ जाते हो.
Wow. So beautiful. Fantastic, Daisy. This is
Oh,
just
thank you.
amazing.
Thank
Very,
you.
very nice. And it's such a curious question from a little child, right? Indradhanush, कहाँ जा रहे हो तुम? Like, where do you
मतलब all the
where
time I see
उसके
you.
उस पार क्या है वहाँ पे, you know?
क्या
So,
है वहाँ पे?
you know, and we can see the curiosity that was in you right from your childhood and which stays with you even
It
now.
stays.
Yeah, and that curiosity emerges in so much of wisdom that you are sharing with us. But beautiful poems,
Thank
and
you.
lovely,
you.
lovely. And I'm sure, for our audience, if you don't know Hindi, then you would just need to look up a few translations. But if you know,
But these are, it is only in this one that I have such difficult Hindi, because this is from a time when I don't know where all this came from. But
yeah,
now now I realize that people don't read so much Hindi. So now my expressions also have mellowed down. It's mostly about, um, everyday words. I've started using a lot of Hindustani, a lot of Urdu, and even the other one that I read for you, उम्र छोटी सी है हर रोज गुजर जाती है. So when while publishing they changed a word, because there was a word here, और एक लम्स है शबनम की तरह जलता हुआ, बिकॉज शबनम की बात कर रहे हैं तो देन आई हैव टू मैच इट विद द राइट वर्ड ना. स्पर्श इज हिंदी, शबनम इज उर्दू, तो मैंने लम्स इस्तेमाल किया था. लेकिन जो पब्लिशर है उसने कहा ये लम्स क्या होता है, किसी को समझ ही नहीं आएगा, इसको चेंज करो, यहाँ पे इसको कुछ हिंदी वर्ड डालो. तो देन आई चेंज्ड इट टू स्पर्श. तो मेरा इसलिए मैं पब्लिश भी अब बहुत कम करने की कोशिश करती हूँ, बिकॉज क्या फायदा जब किसी को समझ नहीं आना है तो पब्लिश क्यों करना है. देन आई डोंट वांट टू कॉम्प्रोमाइज विद व्हाट आई एम राइटिंग. सो लम्स और एक लम्स है शबनम की तरह जलता हुआ की जो पोएट्री थी वो स्पर्श में नहीं है. बट ठीक है, वो पब्लिशर ने बोला तो चेंज कर दिया उस टाइम पे. So this is, yeah, these are the realities of life.
Yeah. So, if you don't know Hindi, this is a good time to learn Hindi and understand, the poems that Daisy has just shared with us. And if you know Hindi, I'm sure you're going to just be amazed at the depth of what she writes. So, and it has to be something that you've carried across births, because the words
I'm
that you're
sure.
using and the depth, the
At that
melancholy,
age,
like you
yeah.
said, at that age, having experienced nothing, like we are all
Having
very,
experienced
very,
nothing. Yeah. And
so,
I lived a very privileged life, I must tell
correct.
you. So
Yeah.
there is no sob story as such in life, So
it's a contrast to
it's,
what we have heard you were, during your childhood years. So I think that was a blessing.
even today a lot of people tell me, oh, you should take care of yourself, and there's so much of pain in what you share, and so much of pain in the poetry that you share and you read. And I really wonder how to tell them that just being able to appreciate the depth of something does not mean that I am living a miserable life. No, I'm not living a miserable life. I just have that knack to appreciate the beauty of pain.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it to people, so I let it be. When they say, "अरे तुम्हारा बड़ा जीवन में दुख है," मैं कहती हूँ, "हाँ हाँ बहुत जीवन में दुख है, आप समझ गए, बड़ी मेहरबानी है." But it's okay, what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So with that, let's wrap up our conversation today. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing a deep part of you. And we truly, truly are amazed and congratulate you for writing so
Thank you.
well. So thank you so much for being with us. We'll come back again, audience, with another topic next week. Until then, take care. Subscribe to my channel so that you are not notified every time we upload an episode. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you for being with us.
Thank
Have a
you. Thank you
fantastic
so
day.
much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.